I had $10,000 in savings, a cozy little home with white curtains I hand-sewed, and a husband who kissed my forehead each morning before work. To anyone watching from the outside, I had everything. But illusions are quiet things. They don't shatter. They dissolve, slowly, cruelly, until there's nothing left but truth and trembling hands. My name is Leah Martin. I was 32 when everything I believed in crumbled over the course of a single week. It started like most things do, with love. Derek and I met at a mutual friend's birthday party in Seattle. He was confident, funny, the kind of man who made you feel like you were the only person in the room. Within 6 months, we were married. He called me his light. I believed him. He got a job offer that moved us to a quiet town in Oregon. "It's just for a few years," he said. "Save up, then we'll build our dream life." So I left. My job in marketing packed up my sketchbooks and followed him. I told myself it was love. It was sacrifice. It was how relationships worked. The first year was sweet. Sunday morning pancakes, spontaneous road trips, inside jokes whispered under the covers. Derek would bring me flowers after business trips, and I'd hang watercolor paintings in the hallway to surprise him. We weren't perfect, but we were close. Then little things began to shift. His phone was suddenly always on silent. He started showering as soon as he got home, something he never used to do. When I asked about it, he'd smile and say I was overthinking. "Work's just been rough," he'd add, pressing a quick kiss to my cheek. One night, while folding laundry, his phone lit up. I wasn't snooping. It was face up for once, and the name caught my eye. Aubrey. The message read, "Last night was worth the risk." My hands went cold. I stared at it for too long, long enough for the screen to go dark again. Didn't confront him. Not that night. I needed to know for sure. Over the next few days, I became a stranger in my own home. Watching, listening, taking notes like a detective in denial. He told me he was working late. I drove past his office, empty parking lot. He said he was out with a client. The receipt in his jacket pocket said, "Dinner for 2 at a romantic inn an hour away." I still wasn't ready to believe it. Not completely. Not until the voicemail. He was in the shower and his phone buzzed. A woman's voice, soft, laughing, filled the room. "Hey babe, left my necklace in your car. Hope your wife didn't see it miss you already." I stood, frozen, the sound playing over and over in my mind like a sick lullaby. When Derek came out, wrapped in a towel, humming to himself, I was sitting on the edge of the bed. I looked at him like I was meeting a stranger. "Who's Aubrey?" I asked. He didn't flinch, just blinked. "What are you talking about?" I played the voicemail. The smile dropped from his face like a mask. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, with a smirk that made my stomach turn, he muttered, "You weren't supposed to find that." No apology, no regret, just arrogance. I asked, "Him why?" He laughed. "Because I could. Because you'd never leave. What would you even do? You haven't worked in 3 years. You've got, what, $10 to your name?" I didn't respond. I couldn't. My chest was hollow. My hands shaking. He left the room. I opened my banking app. My personal account had 15 cents. Everything else was in his name. The shared savings, gone. I hadn't noticed before. I trusted him. I grabbed my phone, my keys, and the small canvas pouch where I kept my sketch pencils. No suitcase. No goodbye. I didn't know where I was going, just that I couldn't stay. As I backed out of the driveway, headlights lit up the window. Derek stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching me. He didn't wave. He didn't chase me. Just watched. The man who once called me his light now looked at me like a dying bulb. But I wasn't broken. Not yet. I had nothing, just 15 cents, a car running on fumes, and a heart full of cracks. But somewhere, in that darkness, something stirred. Not rage, not even sadness, just a quiet, burning promise. The rain hadn't stopped for hours. It tapped against the windshield in a rhythm that felt almost cruel, as if the universe itself were mocking her silence. Leah sat hunched in the driver's seat of her car, blanket wrapped around her legs, fingers wrapped around the last lukewarm coffee she'd bought with a handful of change. The dashboard read, "Low fuel." She hadn't eaten since the night before. This wasn't a scene she could have imagined even in her darkest sketches. No one plans to start over like this. With a pillow stolen from the living room couch and a bag of clothes she'd grabbed without looking. Her phone buzzed. Mom. For the 5th time that morning. She didn't answer. What would she even say? That the man she gave everything to had been living a double life? That she'd been so blind, so trusting, she hadn't even noticed her own disappearance? Instead, she pressed her forehead to the steering wheel and let out a breath so heavy it felt like it might take her with it. Later that day, Leah found herself inside the yellow-lit lobby of Hollow Creek Women's Center, a shelter tucked between a grocery store and an abandoned auto shop. She hadn't meant to go in. Her feet had carried her there after the gas tank hit empty. Pride had nearly stopped her. But hunger was louder than shame. A woman with curly gray hair and eyes that didn't pity, only understood, greeted her. "You alone?" she asked gently. Leah nodded. "Any kids?" "No, just me." "Then you've already got less to carry." The woman's name was Miriam. And she walked Leah through the basics. Shared rooms, daily chores, counseling available but not required. No judgments, no questions unless offered. That night, Leah lay on a cot next to a stranger, who snored softly. She stared at the ceiling, the pale flicker of a street lamp outside casting shapes on the wall. Her mind played tricks, repeating Derek's voice like a cursed chorus. "You wouldn't survive without me." Was he right? The next morning, she took a job cleaning offices. Minimum wage, part-time, miles beneath her past life. But it was hers. At least this time, she could see the floor beneath her feet. It was something solid. 2 weeks in, while organizing a supply closet at the shelter, Miriam found Leah sketching on the back of a pizza box. It was a quick drawing, fluid lines of a faceless woman sitting in the rain. A mirror, really. "You've got something here?" Miriam said. Leah shrugged. "Just a way to keep sane." "Ever thought of selling your work?" She laughed. Not from joy, but disbelief. "Who'd buy sadness on paper?" "You'd be surprised," Miriam replied. "People will pay to feel understood." It was the first time Leah considered that her pain could have purpose. That maybe broken things weren't just lost, they were redrawn. She borrowed a battered laptop from the shelter, opened a free Etsy shop, and called it Soul Sketches. For the banner, she uploaded a photo of one of her older paintings, a cracked heart stitched together with golden thread. She wrote a bio in under 5 minutes, simple, honest. In the first week, she sold nothing. In the second, a woman from Michigan bought a small ink piece called Still Standing. With the sale came a message. "This made me cry. Thank you for drawing what I couldn't say." It wasn't just income, it was affirmation that she existed, that her pain had a shape, and that someone, somewhere, saw it and said, "Me too." But just as Leah began to feel her footing return, a brown envelope arrived at the shelter. Her name, written in cold legal ink. Inside, divorce papers. Derek was filing. Fast. And worse, he wanted everything. The house. The shared car. Even the small savings account he'd opened in both their names before they'd moved. He claimed she hadn't contributed, that she was voluntarily unemployed. He was right on paper. She had no job history in 3 years, no proof of income beyond recent sketches. The included letter from his lawyer chilled her. It was a threat dressed in civility. But Leah saw it for what it was, a warning that he'd ruin what little she had left, just to prove he still could. She signed. Not because she agreed, because she was done letting Derek decide what she was worth. That night she didn't cry. She sketched, a tree cracked in half, struck by lightning, but still blooming from the break. She titled it, Breathe Again. Her second sale. Leah didn't feel like she was healing, not yet. Healing, she'd learned, wasn't a light switch. It was slow, gritty, and often invisible to the eye, like roots growing underground long before the bloom. She started waking at 5 a.m. every morning. Not because she had to, but because quiet was easier to face before the world had demands. She'd make instant coffee in the shelter's shared kitchen, then walk 2 blocks to her new job at Sammy's Diner, a place with peeling booths and a jukebox that only played hits from the 80s. The pay was modest, the uniform unflattering, but the routine gave her something she hadn't felt in months: agency. She earned every dollar. Her feet ached by noon, but it was a pain that belonged to her, and only her. In between taking orders and refilling coffee, she'd scribble quick sketches on order pads and paper napkins. She'd tape the best ones above her cot, like paper medals, proof that she hadn't stopped creating. Not completely. Sales on her Etsy shop trickled in. Sometimes just one a week, sometimes none. But with each message from a buyer, usually women, usually strangers who felt like sisters, she grew bolder. She upgraded her supplies, bought real paper, a proper set of pencils. Bit by bit, she was investing in herself again. It was during her shift on a Tuesday afternoon that Evan Keller walked in. He wasn't flashy, tall, quiet, maybe late 30s, wore flannel like it was a second skin. He asked for black coffee and lemon pie, then pulled a paperback from his coat pocket and read at the counter for nearly an hour. The next day, he came back. Same order, same seat. By the 4th visit, Leah finally asked, "You live around here or just obsessed with mediocre pie?" He smiled without looking up. "I own the bookstore across the street. This place has the only lemon pie that doesn't taste like regret." She chuckled before she could stop herself. It felt foreign, like laughter had to ask permission now. That afternoon, she searched for his shop. Keller Books. A narrow storefront with dust-lined windows and a chalkboard sign out front that read, "Books are cheaper than therapy." Inside, it smelled like paper and cedar wood, calming, familiar. Over the next few weeks, Evan became more than a customer. He asked about her art, never pushing, only listening. One day, she brought in a sketch she'd done of the diner, a quiet tribute to new beginnings. He stared at it for a long moment, then said, "I could hang this in the store if you'd like." She hesitated. "You'd do that?" "I think people could use something real," he said. "Your work. It's raw in a way that hurts and heals at the same time." That was the first time she believed her drawings might belong in the world, not just in sketchbooks under her pillow. He invited her to a local art fair in the park downtown, an annual event that drew small crowds and local artisans. Leah almost declined. She didn't feel ready. But something inside her, fragile yet persistent, whispered, "Go." She booked a tiny booth with the last of her diner tips, displayed 10 framed sketches. Nothing flashy, just truth, grief, resilience, hope. Each piece labeled with a single-word title: fracture, rooted, shatterproof. She didn't expect them to sell, but one by one, they did. A woman in her 60s wept while holding Unspoken, a portrait of a woman with a cracked mouth and glowing eyes. A teenager asked if Leah taught classes. A man bought 3 pieces for his daughter in rehab. By sundown, Leah had sold out. She walked the park in a daze, the cool breeze brushing against her face like quiet applause. She called Miriam first. Then she crossed the street to Keller, books, and found Evan stacking a shelf near the window. Without a word, she handed him the last unsold piece, a sketch titled Still Here. He looked at it, then at her. "You are," he said softly. "You really are." For the first time since leaving Derek, Leah didn't feel like she was surviving. She felt like she was becoming. And just beyond that realization was something unfamiliar, something she hadn't dared name yet. Hope. The invitation came by email. No greeting, no warmth, just a subject line that read, "Request for closure." Leah stared at the screen, the cursor blinking like a dare. It was from Derek. The man who once vowed to protect her dreams now wanted a final conversation. 3 months had passed since the divorce papers were signed. 3 months since she'd last seen his face. She almost deleted it. But something stopped her. Closure wasn't for him. It was for her. They met at a neutral cafe halfway between her shelter and his office, though he didn't know she still lived in transitional housing. He arrived 10 minutes late, expensive sunglasses perched on his head, phone in hand. Same smug smirk, same cologne. But Leah noticed the lines around his eyes had deepened. His tie was crooked. "You look different," he said, as if surprised. She hadn't dissolved without him. Leah offered a neutral smile. "So do you." He ordered black coffee. She declined anything. "I just wanted to say I didn't mean for things to get ugly," Derek said, folding his hands like a man giving a sermon. "You caught me off guard. I was under stress and, well, you weren't the same person anymore." She tilted her head. "No, I wasn't. I stopped being small." He shifted in his seat. "I mean, you didn't work. You stayed home, drawing. You had no idea what it was like to carry the pressure of everything." Leah let silence fill the air. Once his words would have unraveled her. Now they rolled off like raindrops against steel. "I trusted you," she said evenly, "and you took advantage of that." Derek ran a hand through his hair. "Look, I just thought maybe we could start over someday. We were good once. Remember?" She did remember. The Sunday pancakes, the whispered jokes, the illusion. But she also remembered crying in a car seat, counting pennies, wondering if she'd made a mistake by leaving. "No," she said, her voice firm. "You were never in love with me. You were in love with the version of me that stayed silent." He blinked, stunned. "So that's it?" Leah stood. "That's it." Outside, the wind lifted her scarf gently as she walked away. She didn't look back, not even once. That same week, Miriam called with news. "You're approved," she said. "The city grant came through. You've got 6 months of subsidized rent if you take the studio apartment." Leah stared at the email attachment. Her name in bold next to the word approved. Her own space. No curfew. No shared rooms. A real address. She moved in 2 days later. A 1-bedroom walk-up with creaky floors, white walls, and light that poured in from wide windows like an apology. The first thing she unpacked was her art supplies. Evan helped her carry in the last of the boxes. He didn't ask if he could stay. He simply sat cross-legged on the bare floor and handed her a mug of tea. "You ever think," he asked, "that rock bottom isn't the end, just the foundation?" She smiled. "I think it's where the real building begins." That night, she launched her own website, LeahMartinart.com. Not just an Etsy page, a full portfolio. She added prints, custom commissions, and a blog called Healing in Lines, where she shared pieces of her journey, not to bleed on the page, but to show others they could stop hiding their scars. Within weeks, her inbox overflowed. Orders came in from all over the country. A women's shelter in Chicago requested a mural. A non-profit offered to sponsor her art classes for trauma survivors. Her story had spread, shared online by someone who'd bought Still Here. It had gone viral. People weren't buying art anymore. They were buying courage. Evans surprised her one evening with a wrapped canvas. When she peeled back the paper, she gasped. It was her, drawn by him. Standing barefoot, hair blowing, sketch pad in hand, surrounded by blooming trees made of ink and gold. "I wanted you to see what I see," he said quietly. She looked at him then, not as a man who'd saved her, but one who walked beside her while she saved herself. She kissed him, gently, without fear. Leah had once been left with 15 cents, a broken heart, and nothing but uncertainty. Now she stood surrounded by light, brush in hand, building a life on her own terms. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. And the world, it was watching, quietly inspired by a woman who turned betrayal into beauty and dared to begin again.